Good afternoon. On behalf of the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association, I'd like to welcome you all to our weekly digital series on resume writing. My name is Alicia Suggs, and I'm the Director of University and Alumni Relations, and I'm going to turn it over to my co-host so that she can introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Diona Phoenix, and I assist Alicia with the University and Alumni Relations Committee.
Thank you, Diona. For those of you on the line, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat box. Diona and I will be reviewing the chat box periodically as we step through the presentation. So as you know, today's webinar is on resume writing, and I'm so excited. We have Kristen Kenner here, who's also known as the Mod Mentor, and she's going to be providing you with some great tips on how to revamp or enhance your resume, as well as how to build a strong cover letter, and also providing some cool job hunting tips on what you can do during this pandemic. But before we get started, I want to give you a background on Kristen. Kristen Kenner, MPA, is a marketing manager for a B2B tech product by day and a resume writing guru by night. Kristen has a knack for solving complex marketing challenges and developing communications materials, a trait that she carries into her work as the Mod Mentor. Under the pseudonym Mod Mentor, she has revamped over 100 resumes, cover letters, and business materials for professionals of all career stages, and she takes great pride in helping her clients advance in their careers. Former clients of Kristen have landed roles at Facebook, Google, and other Fortune 500 companies. Kristen earned her undergraduate degree from Temple University and her graduate degree from Baruch College. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Kenner. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you for the warm welcome. I'm very, very happy to be doing this with you guys this evening. I appreciate, before we even get started, I appreciate you guys even contacting me for this opportunity. I think it's great, and I hope that everyone on the webinar tonight finds it helpful and useful. So let's jump right on in. All right, so like Alicia mentioned, we're going to cover a lot of things this evening. Some things I'll be able to get into much more in depth. Other things we'll just kind of keep high level to keep the evening moving along. But overall, this is the agenda for the night. So I'm going to expand a little bit more on who is the Mod Mentor and this kind of pseudonym that I gave for myself. We'll talk a little bit about the effect that the coronavirus and this pandemic has on job hunting and interviewing. And then we'll get into some kind of 101, 102, 103 things with job hunting, resume writing tips, and cover letter clues. So if that sounds good to all of us, I'm going to jump right into it. So like Alicia said, the Mod Mentor is the nickname I gave myself for the work that I do outside of my 9-to-5 as a career coach. So like she mentioned, 9-to-5, I'm a marketing manager. I've been doing that for about 7 years, so that's where my expertise lies. But additionally, I do resume writing, cover letter revamping, portfolios, things of that nature. It's always been a passion of mine to help folks in their career, and I'm finally at a place in my career where I can not only do my day-to-day work, but I can also give back and through the work that I do for folks in theirs. This is just some of the client feedback. I won't go into it too much into detail, but I do pride myself on making sure that I collaborate with my clients and really just kind of hone in on the direction they want to take their careers and kind of hold their hand every step of the way. So without further ado, the COVID effect. So I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but you know, every time you watch the news or you open the newspaper or you're on social media, it's just a slew of bad news and kind of just disappointments. You know, you hear things about, oh, the economy is tanking and, you know, the stock market is falling and everyone's losing their jobs and they're trying to file for unemployment, but the unemployment websites are down. And it's just, you know, and I threw in some headlines over the past couple of weeks, but it's been really heavy news. So in addition to it just being an uncertain time just in life, the news has been really heavy. And for the folks on this call, whether you have an MBA or not, or it's something you're thinking about, it could kind of give you some anxiety and some worry. But while I was researching for this presentation, I did come across an article on Business Because. It's a niche website for folks who are going to business school and studying to or planning to go to grad school. They had an article that said how an MBA will prepare you for the post-coronavirus job market. So if you are on this call and you do have an MBA, you're thinking of earning one, you're in a really good position. So don't fret about, what's going on in the world right now. You are actually putting yourself in the best position possible.
Hey, Kristen.
So if you're asking, yep.
When the economy begins to recover from COVID-19, what tips do you have for some job seekers to get their resumes to the top of the list?
I think so. You're jumping the gun. That's definitely going to talk about that as we go forward. But post-coronavirus, you're going to want to do the same things that you were doing pre. You're going to want to make sure that your resume has keywords in it from the job description and just from the industry in general. You're going to want to make sure that you're networking. You should really ramp up your networking efforts now, and we're going to talk about that in our next slide. But you want to make sure that once this pandemic is over, that you can jump right into it, that you haven't missed a beat, and that you haven't slowed down too much during the pandemic.
Great.
Did I answer your question, Alicia? Did that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, awesome. So yes, should you be job hunting during the pandemic? I think so. Why? Because it's pretty much business as usual for a lot of companies. So a lot of folks are saying post-pandemic, people are going to be moving to remote work, and even right now you may be working from home. But even pre-pandemic, a lot of companies were doing that too. So the companies that were prepared to have folks working from home or telecommuting, this is business as usual for them. They're conducting their interviews via Skype, Zoom, all of those things. Right now is also a bit of a level playing field. And what I mean by that is folks are unfortunately losing their jobs, or folks are unfortunately having their hours cut back, or they may have to take a job that's a little bit beneath what they wanted. So when you go for your interviews and folks are saying, oh, explain this gap on your resume, or oh, why weren't you employed in 2020? We're kind of all in the same boat. Careers kind of took a nosedive because of this. So the playing field is pretty level. You also have the convenience of applying and interviewing from home for the most part. So I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but there are times when I've been at work and I wanted to apply for a job or had an interview scheduled, and you have to kind of run and find private space. We're all sitting at home for the most part. So now is the time where we have this free time, we can do those things. And most importantly, I think right now we have a great opportunity to realign and pivot. We can pick up new skills. We can figure out if the career we had is the career we want to have, if the industry we were in is the industry we want to stay in. Right now is a really great time for self-reflection. And there are tons of other reasons why, but I just wanted to include these as high-level bullet points for why we should still be, if we're able to, job hunt during the pandemic. Also, for folks on the call, I don't know if this number is 100% accurate right now, but prior to the pandemic, 3/4 of companies were looking to recruit or hire MBA graduates. So folks who have their degree or are thinking about earning one, you're sought after. So just another reason why job hunting is super important right now. And I know money is not everything, but I'll let this slide speak for itself. The starting salary for MBA graduates right now is $115K, and we're all adults here. Some of us have debt, we have bills. So if you are earning your degree or you recently earned your degree, again, you're sought after. Folks are looking for you and hopefully paying you well. So now I'm going to jump into the job hunting portion. So obviously everyone always says, research, do your due diligence and all of that before applying. And I 100% agree with that. And I think despite coronavirus, you should always be doing that. But now that, things have changed, there are definitely questions that you want to ask or things that you want to know before even applying. So prior to the virus, you would probably ask things like, what's the diversity like? What's the promotion plan like? Are they, do they have a promotion path? Am I going to be here for 5 years and never get promoted? Those type of questions, and you still should. But post-pandemic and during the pandemic, these are other things that I think we should get the inside scoop on if possible. We want to know, is the company that you're applying for, are they laying off their employees? Have they let go of full teams? Are their departments staying intact? If they are they taking care of those employees? Are they still getting their full salary? Are they still getting benefits? Is the company doing hiring freezes? Have they stopped completely hiring folks until 2021? We don't know, and that's information that we want to find out. And of course, I think this is most important, have they announced a path forward? So post-pandemic, what is the state of their company going to look like? Are they going to have to close offices? Are they going to move to a telework or telecommute setup? Are they going to be expanding? There are some companies who are weathering this pandemic and taking it in stride. So you're going to want to know those sorts of things. And just on the right-hand side, or my right, there are just a couple of icons and logos of websites that can help you find out this information. We all know about LinkedIn and Glassdoor, but other websites like Fairy Godboss, mostly tailored toward women, but nonetheless, they also do provide reviews of companies, reviews from the company themselves. Some of them have pages that, of course, their staff and their employees also comment on these websites. And of course, down at the bottom, the pro tip, tap your networks. Now is the time. Like I said, we're all home. We're all in front of our laptops primarily for most of the day. If you're on LinkedIn or if you're on any other networking platform, take advantage, especially if you know someone who's working at the company that you're thinking of applying for. Now is the perfect time to ask these questions. And I can guarantee you, when folks reach out to me on LinkedIn, I never take offense. I'm always willing to help. People are more willing to help if you ask. My motto is the answer is always no until you ask, or the answer is always unfound until you ask. So definitely tap your networks and your connections.
And Kristen, would this apply to those applying for internships as well?
Absolutely, 100%. If you are looking to intern somewhere, or even if you're just looking to have an informal conversation, you can certainly reach out to your networks or a friend of a friend or whomever, however you can get your foot in the door, ask for an introduction, totally do it. Internship, full-time job, no matter what, always try to get as close to the company as you can.
Great.
So now we're going to segue into resume writing. So something that I did, I'm sorry, I'm going to pop up. So something that I thought of as I was putting this presentation together is it seems that there's a variety of folks at different stages in their career journey or in their grad school journey. So I wanted to break down, based on the stage that you're at or based in the phase that you're at, what your resume should include, what are some really great things you should have on there. So let's say you're a prospective MBA candidate. You're thinking of going to grad school, it's on your mind, you're considering applying. This is one of the few times in life, and this pro tip should probably be at the top, this is one of the few times in life where you're going to submit your resume online and someone is actually going to read it first without it passing through an ATS system. An ATS system is an applicant tracking system. What that is let's say I apply for a job at Citibank. I apply on Citibank's website. They have a system on their website or a software on their website that's going to parse through your resume and look for keywords to determine if you're a qualified candidate. From there, if they say yes, if the computer says yes, this person looks like a qualified candidate based on the keywords in their resume, I'll pass this on to the hiring manager, the recruiter, whomever. But when you're actually applying to grad school, these are going straight to the admissions officers. It's their job to sit there and read through your application material. So you have an advantage that someone's eyes are going to be on this first. So let's say you're someone who recently graduated undergrad, you've been working for a year or two, and you're thinking of going to grad school, or maybe you haven't started working for a year or two and you want to go straight to grad school. You may not have tons of professional achievements, and that's okay, because even if you don't, you're going to want to highlight extracurricular and volunteer work. So in this example, this person, Jane Smith, she has a BA in accounting. She graduated in 2018. Since then, she's been the treasurer at the Jersey City Small Business Association. That lets me know as an admissions officer, oh, this person is serious. In addition to their job, they're only a junior accountant, and that's fine because they're relatively fresh out of college. But in addition to their job, they're active in their community, and they're doing roles that complement their work. So she's a treasurer. She works with numbers. She's an accountant. She's boosting up her resume and her experience through a variety of means. If you have academic achievement, this is also where you want to list them, right underneath your education. So let's say Jane Smith graduated top of her class, or let's say Jane Smith had a 4.0 or a 3.9, she would put that there on her resume. You'll also want to highlight your soft skills. Again, if you haven't been working for a long time and you haven't built up, many technical skills or hard skills, you're going to want to highlight that you are great at, building teams, great at communication. You are a whiz at project management. You're going to want to highlight those sorts of things on your resume.
Kristen, are there any key buzzwords that you should add to your resume if you are a prospective MBA candidate? I know it's not passing through an ATS system, but if you're giving it to an admissions officer, are there any type of buzzwords that you think would really pique their interest?
Absolutely. So if someone's an admissions officer, they're looking for things, or they're looking for candidates to join their program who are great at teamwork, who are great at collaborating, who have leadership skills and experience, who are detail-oriented, who are organized, who can project manage. So buzzwords like that, they're going to want to know, okay, again, this person may not have tons of professional experience, but as a well-rounded person, do they at least have these skill sets? So you're going to want to include those type of keywords and buzzwords in your resume.
Great.
And now, let's say you're a current MBA candidate. Let's say you've been in your program for about a year, and you're job hunting or just want to spruce up your resume. Because you've been in your program, you can continue to highlight, I'm in this program because I want to grow professionally. You can highlight that you're getting ready to earn your degree. You're going to put, obviously you don't have it yet, so you're going to put the year that you will acquire it. You're going to include relevant courses and clubs. If you are a co-chair on any committees, if you lead any teams, if you were the leader on any projects in class, those are the sorts of things that you want to highlight on this version of your resume. And of course, practical knowledge. So again, if you had a class on, I'm looking at this example resume, this is a marketing resume. Let's say you took a marketing class and you learned real life skills that you can apply in your job. You're going to want to highlight that there. So in this last bullet, you can say things like, I developed these marketing campaigns and these were my results. And then hopefully when you're chosen for an interview, you're going to expand on that. Like, okay, I learned this through my MBA program, and here's how I'm applying it in real life, in my day-to-day job.
Hey, Kristen, real quick,
Yeah.
there is a question in the chat. It says, is a summary or an objective on your resume necessary?
Yes, absolutely. So 2 things. First thing, I think it's necessary only if for no other reason. That's an opportunity, a perfect opportunity to throw in additional keywords. Because remember, if you're applying for a job online, the ATS system is going to scan your resume. If you have your summary, that is a great place to throw in, just sprinkle in those keywords and just get yourself, your odds are higher for getting selected. But if you do get selected, it's a great place for the recruiter. One, their eyes are going to go right there, but it's a great place to just give me a quick background, a quick synopsis on you. So just looking at this person, let's say I'm recruiting for a marketing position, before I even read the rest of her resume, okay, this person's a junior marketing manager, they're getting their MBA, they've been doing it for 2 years for B2B, so I don't necessarily need to read the rest of your resume because you've given me this great synopsis right here, and it tells me, what you've been up to and how well you do your job. So 100%, always include a summary or an objective, or combine the two. So in this example, the last sentence is somewhat of the objective.
Great, thank you.
Of course. If you're a recent MBA grad, of course, now is the opportunity to highlight that degree that you just received, or that you just earned, I should say. And you're going to want to highlight your professional experience as well. Again, highlight the value that you've added as a result of your degree. If you took classes, if you were in projects, if you learned anything in your program, which of course you learned tons, and you were able to apply that to your work, highlight that for sure. Highlight that degree meant something to you and it's applicable in your day-to-day life now, doing whatever it is that you do in your career. Again, you're going to want to highlight relevant courses and clubs. In this example, I included that this person was Executive VP of the Financial Planners Club. Fake club, fake title, but again, you're going to want to show that you were involved and you took your degree seriously. And again, real-world application of the business concepts that you learned.
Kristen, is it still relevant to use resume paper, or is that something that's outdated?
That's a really, really good question. It depends. So personally, I always use resume paper. So obviously when you apply for a job online, they're looking at your resume on the screen, and even when you get to the interview, they may have printed it out themselves already in the office, but you look so much more put together and just sharp, just walking in there ready for your interview with your resume paper and a nice folder. You have copies for everyone that you're meeting. It just gives off the appearance that this person is prepared and they're taking this opportunity and this interview seriously. So 100%. Always have your resume printed out. And if you can have it printed on resume paper or nice stock paper, all the better.
Your cover letter as well, or just your resume?
100% both materials. Any materials that you're thinking of bringing or are bringing to your interview, have that printed out on nice paper. If you're bringing out clippings of articles that you wrote, blogs that you wrote, have that on nice paper, have it packaged very nicely, either as a leave behind to leave there with your interviewers, or just to have them reference it right then and there on the spot.
Do you have another question? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Diona, you're good.
Okay. So we have another question in the chat.
Yeah.
This one comes from Curtis. He says, nowadays, resume templates will have an option to include a professional photo on it. Do you recommend this? And if so, should we use our professional headshot that we have on LinkedIn, for instance?
That's a really good question. Should you use a professional photo on your resume? I would say no, only because, and it's sad that I feel horrible even saying this, but you don't want someone to judge you before you even get your foot in the door. You don't want someone to see that you are potentially a person of color, or that you rock your beautiful natural hair and then they judge you for that, or you have a nose ring and they judge you for that. You don't want to give anyone a reason to look at you and not your work and just assume that you're not a qualified candidate. So I 100% think professional photos are applicable on LinkedIn and other places online potentially, but I would probably side against including that on your resume just because you don't want anyone to judge you or prejudge you, I should say.
Okay, and we have one more question. Are there websites or programs that can help highlight specific keywords in a job description so that it can better help the candidate's resume pass through the applicant tracking system?
To be perfectly honest, when I'm working with my clients, I do not use a software or any tool for that. What I do it really old school. I go ahead and print out that job description, and I have their resume and their accomplishments next to me, and I go through that job description and I literally play matchup. Or if I'm going through the job description and the job description says 3 times that we want someone who's proficient in risk management, we want someone who is, strong at creating departmental budgets. If I see that several times in the resume, that's my key word. I think sometimes, and even myself, we tend to overthink it, and we look at these job descriptions and we say, oh, they ask for so much, and they're asking for the same thing several different ways. So you kind of have to be keen and, print it out and go through it line by line with a pen and say, okay, they said this, they said that. These two are literally saying the same thing. They clearly want this. This is a buzzword. This is a key term. This is something they're looking for. So that's how I find those key terms in the job description.
One more.
Sure, yeah.
How do you feel about resumes that have 2 pages?
Okay, so if you are someone who has been in the industry or been in your career for a long time, yes, you may have some runover or some spillover. I always say, and I hold myself to this rule because I too have had several jobs. So technically, if I were to include every job and all my accomplishments and things, it would run over 2 pages. But try your very, very, very best to only include relevant information. So if you've been working at your current job for a year or 2, and before that you were at another job for a year or 2, and then before that you were at one job for 3 months, and then you had you may want to exclude that 3-month job. Or you may want to only include 2 bullets under that 3-month job as opposed to 4 bullets for each. Try to see if you can play around with the spacing, the sizing, the amount of copy that you put, things like that, before letting it run over onto 2 pages. If it runs over, it runs over. But you want to make sure that the bulk of your information, the things that recruiters are looking for, need to be above the fold. So even in including these screenshots, obviously this resume has much more professional experience from this person, but everything you see right here, this is what the recruiter is seeing in their first glance, right? So they're looking at a resume, they're taking just a couple of seconds to sparse it over. They may not even get to the bottom of the first page, let alone the second page. So you want to make sure that all of your achievements, your qualifications, everything that makes you a great candidate is above the fold.
Thanks. I think that's it for now.
Okay, cool. So remember, and this is across the board, MBA program or not, show real-world application of the things that you learned in college, in your program, in your extracurricular experiences, your volunteer experience. Show how whatever it is that you were in, whatever program, you're applying that to your actual professional career. Quantify wherever possible. So instead of saying, I helped grow our revenue in the 3rd quarter, how much did you grow it? Did you grow it 10%, 20%, 80%? Quantify wherever possible to show scope and scale of your work. Show leadership positions wherever possible. You know, you may be the finance manager and you may not have too much of a quote-unquote leadership role in that position, but maybe you're also the head of diversity and inclusion for the company, and that's a leadership role. So maybe that's your last bullet in that section of that job. Wherever you can show that, you know, you're taking ownership and you're guiding folks and you're guiding a team, do that wherever possible. Keyword sprinkles, like we mentioned, they give them to you right in the job description. Just go ahead and throw them all in your resume so that you come up to the top in the ATS system. And readability is also something that's important. So again, you want everything above the fold. That doesn't necessarily mean you cram everything in and, you know, you have to make 10-point copy now because you crammed everything in. White space is your friend. You know, how many times do you look at a piece of paper and it's just, whoa, so much copy, I don't even know where to look, I don't know where to start. Use white space to your advantage. Use headers to your advantage. Use all of that bold things if you have to, italicize things if you have to. But make sure that above all, it's visually pleasing and easy to read. I'm going to jump into cover letters, but I do want to take a pause just in case there are any questions in the chat before we move away from resumes.
None at the moment, but you guys feel free to add to the chat and we will read your questions as they come in.
Cool. All right, so let's keep on trucking.
I do have one question, Kristen. Should you keep certain jobs off your resume because you may be deemed overqualified for a position? I know that sometimes if someone's applying for a job, they have all this great experience, but the position may not require all of that experience. Do you think that it's smart for a candidate to remove certain positions so that they would, you know, attain a job, especially during this time? Like obviously there's a lot of people looking for jobs and they don't want to, you know, kind of X their prospective employer or, you know, the possibility of getting that job because they're overqualified. What's your thoughts on that?
Of course. So of course, no one wants to downplay their success, right? If you've accomplished things, you've accomplished those, and that should fall under your name fair and square. But considering the current climate that we're in with the pandemic and things like that, you may or may not have to take a scale or step back, I should say. So let's say you were the VP of finance prior to the pandemic, and you know, you got to put food on the table, you got to pay your bills, and VP roles aren't popping up as quickly as you'd like, and you may have to take a senior manager role. That's okay. It's never a flaw or something against you for having to take a step back. With that being said, I don't think that you should, again, downplay your success. If you were a VP before, include that title on your resume. That was legally and professionally your title. However, in the bullet points, there are ways that you can kind of, you know, shift around the verbiage, and instead of, you know, maybe you don't want to include that you managed a team of 20, or, you know, there are just the subtle ways that you can maybe not seem overqualified. I know that a lot of folks who have been in their career for a very long time struggle with this. It's like, oh, I've been in my career 15 years, and then I go for the interview, and they're looking for someone who's, you know, kind of middle management, and I'm too overqualified for them. That's, again, where it comes into play, where you pick and choose which bullet points you're going to keep, which positions you're going to keep so that you fit that role. Because remember, whatever position we're applying for, we're tailoring our resume for each position. We're not just sending out the same generic resume. So depending on what role you're applying for, whether it's a jump, a leap, or maybe a step back, you're going to want to tailor your resume and include keywords and key terms and bullet points that are specific to that role. And if that means scaling some things back, then you may have to potentially scale some things back.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Of course. I'm going to jump into cover letters now, which we all love, right? That's a joke. Even myself, sometimes I'm like, do you really need this cover letter? But you do. And here's why. So this is the acronym that I like to use when I'm working with my clients for cover. So C, champion yourself. How often do you get an opportunity to say, yep, I did this, I did that, these are my achievements, I'm great at this, I'm great at that. You don't really get that opportunity too often in, you know, day-to-day life. This cover letter is the opportunity for that. The O, offer stats and results. And the example that you can see on the right, this is, mind you, these are templates that I give to my clients sometimes if they want to take their cover letter and run with it as opposed to having me write it. I give them kind of plug and play. So over here in this section in the middle, you can put in your accomplishments, and you can include numbers and percentages and things to show the work that you did and, you know, the accomplishments that you have under your belt. So your resume is not the only place that you're dropping those in. You're dropping those in your cover letter. And back to the readability point, instead of having them, you know, blocked off together in paragraphs, 1 or 2 sentence bullet points, so I can read that very quickly as a recruiter. Verify your reader. So if you don't necessarily know the name of your hiring manager, let's say you found this job on LinkedIn and it's not attributed to someone at the company, maybe it just says, you know, hiring HR department posted it, do your very best stalking. I'm going to use the word stalking. Use your very best professional stalking to find out who you need to address this to. Whether that is the VP of HR, whether it comes down to, you know, you don't even know and you're just going to include your future boss's name because you found them on LinkedIn. No matter what, whoever this cover letter and resume, whoever's desk it lands on, we're going to appreciate the fact that you at least included someone relevant as opposed to whom it may concern or dear reader. Even if you put my colleague's name as opposed to my name, I know you did your research, and I could tip my hat off to you at least for that. It goes a longer way than folks realize. The E, expand as needed. So let's say you have a gap on your resume. You have a gap of 2 years. Looking at your resume, I may not know why you have that gap, but the cover letter is the opportunity to say that. So expand on points that may or may not be crystal clear in your resume. So let's say you are a new mom, or you had to take time off to be a caregiver for someone. That can go in your cover letter. And obviously that's not in this template, but this is where it would go. You would say something like, you know, I've been in my career at doing XYZ for XYZ long. Over the past 2 years, I took a caregiver role. Moving forward, I would like to. And you don't have to, you know, expand on it as if, you know, woe is me, feel bad for me. Just past 2 years, I was in a caregiver role. Moving forward, you keep it positive. You look towards the future. So the E is definitely for expand where needed. Things you can't say in your resume, you can say in your cover letter.
Kristen.
And the R is, yeah.
Sorry. There's actually a question in the chat related to that, to explaining gaps in your resume. So someone asked, what about jobs that you may have taken in the past that are not relevant and you want to leave those off your resume? How do you do that without, you know,
leaving too big of a gap? Yeah. So let's say that, so in my mind, and again, I can't speak for every single recruiter, but if I get a resume and I see a gap of less than a year, less than 8 months, it's fine. Life happens. It takes people 6 to 8 months to find a job anyway. So most recruiters will be understanding of that. But if you're removing jobs to the point where now you're looking at a year of a gap, 2 years of a gap, you may want to reconsider that. And if you reconsider that and you say, okay, my gap is looking too big now it's looking questionable as if I wasn't doing much, maybe leave those jobs on there, but try your very, very hardest to include in the bullet points relevant things that you did at that job that will apply for roles, that will go for the role that you're applying for now. Like if you can say, you know, this job overall didn't help me too much, but can I at least squeeze 2 bullet points out of this job that can be relevant to the role that I'm applying for now? Because you kind of have to weigh the scales, right? It's either I have a 2-year gap or I try to squeeze some bullet points out. I would try to squeeze some bullet points out. I hope that helps answer the question.
Hey, Kristen. Oh, is there another question, Diona?
Nope.
Okay. I have a question, Kristen. Should you make sure that the LinkedIn page mirrors your resume? Because I know that sometimes you can leave an irrelevant job off of your resume, but what if it's on your LinkedIn page and a prospective employer just takes a glimpse at it and like, hey, this doesn't match up. Do you think it should mirror exactly what you're providing an employer?
Yep. I think they should totally sync up. Now, when I say sync up, that doesn't mean that you're copying and pasting, you know, bullet points from your resume and putting them on your LinkedIn. I personally wouldn't advise to do that. But of course, the jobs that are on your resume should be on your LinkedIn profile. Now, if there was a job that you excluded from your resume, you don't necessarily have to exclude it from your LinkedIn, but I wouldn't put any context to it on LinkedIn. So you know how LinkedIn gives you the option to say, to describe what you did at that job. If you choose to keep that job on your LinkedIn page, you may want to leave that blank, or you may want to, again, squeeze some bullet points out and put it there. Totally up to you. But for the most part, yes, they should mirror each other. Someone should not look at your LinkedIn and say, oh, this is not on their resume. are like, oh, why is this on their LinkedIn and not their resume? They should mirror as close as possible. And if there are jobs you're excluding for whatever reason, you're welcome to exclude them from your LinkedIn. But if you do keep them on your LinkedIn, either don't include too much of a description or include a very limited description.
Okay, another question for you. So sometimes some people, you know, attended different universities during their undergraduate career and even possibly through their, you know, graduate career. Is it always best to just include the one school that you graduated from instead of all the schools that you attended? Or is it better to like include all of the schools that you attended on your resume?
It depends. So let's say you attended, like myself, let's say I attended Temple for 2 years, but I finished my degree at Baruch. What did I do in those 2 years at Temple? Maybe I was on the e-board of an organization. Maybe I completed a really hefty, a really nice project while I was at Temple. Maybe I won an award. Maybe I was recognized for Student of the Month or whatever the case may be. I want to include that. I don't want to just pretend that didn't happen. So it depends. I would say yes, you went to that school, you paid for that school, you learned things at that school. So I would totally include both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And should your cover letter only be 1 page?
Yes. So yes, there's a little bit of flexibility with the resume, but the cover letter, anything longer than a page. Now I'm reading an essay, you know. So yes, for the cover letter, I always say 1 page. You can get away with it with a resume. With the cover letter, anything longer, it just starts to just lose attention span. And
when you are providing employers or future employers with your resume and cover letter, should you save it in a PDF format or just in a plain Word document? What's the best option for that?
Yep, I would save it in a PDF format. These organizations, these companies that you're applying for, the software that they use to receive their resumes can 100% read PDFs. PDFs also save your formatting. So let's say your resume has icons or bullet points or just, again, maybe you're into digital design or graphic design and you've done your resume to reflect your experience in graphic design. To make sure that what you see is the same as what the recruiter sees, you're going to want to save it as a PDF because it'll keep your formatting.
Thank you.
Of course. So I think we covered everything on this cover letter slide. So again, C, champion yourself, brag about yourself. O, offer stats and relevant results that you've achieved. V, verify who your reader is, who this needs to be addressed to. E, expand on anything that you weren't able to touch on in your resume. And R, refrain from regurgitating. So everything that's on your resume doesn't have to be here. We're just going to pull out the highlights. So don't feel like you have to, you know, oh my God, how do I get this resume into my cover letter and vice versa. There can be some overlap, but there's more room for personality and conversation in the cover letter than the resume. And what about LinkedIn? So I mentioned LinkedIn earlier as obviously a tool for networking, but it's also a very, very good tool for job seeking in general. My current job found on LinkedIn. So always make sure that your profile is current and up to date. If you have any relevant professional materials, aside whether it's your resume or not, let's say you've created white papers, maybe you have something that you want to show off from grad school, something you did in your MBA program, maybe you have a link to your portfolio. LinkedIn gives you a section to include that on your profile, so make sure that that is there. And make sure that you are accepting messages from recruiters. There's a setting in LinkedIn, if you haven't already done it, there's something in your LinkedIn settings where you go under job seeking preferences, and you can let recruiters know that you're open to opportunities. And they will DM you, it goes down in the LinkedIn DMs, they will reach out to you because they saw that you want messages from recruiters. And two, I don't know if many folks know this, but LinkedIn provides its own, I won't say its own separate platform, but its own separate algorithm for recruiters. So recruiters are able to parse through your LinkedIn profile for keywords as well. So again, like your resume, you're going to want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile has those buzzwords and those key terms that are specific to your industry or the industry that you want to be in, because recruiters can see that on the back end. Your LinkedIn profile is going to pop up for them. So make sure that you have your messages on so they can contact you.
Is LinkedIn another site that you can upload your actual resume to, or is that not an option on LinkedIn?
It's a matter of personal preference. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to want to make sure that our resumes reflect the jobs that we are applying to, which means we're tailoring our resume per job. But if if you work in a generic sort of industry and then you want to keep the same sort of role, if you are looking, you can throw up a general resume that just highlights your accomplishments and your achievements. It doesn't necessarily have to be, this is my Citibank resume, let me put that on my LinkedIn. If you have a more generic resume that just highlights what you've been up to, things that you've accomplished, that's okay to put on your LinkedIn.
So with the option to let recruiters know you're open to opportunities, is it possible that your current employer that you work for can see your name pop up in this, I guess, pool of applicants? And what do you do? Go ahead, sorry.
No, I cut you off. You go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, what do you do to make sure that that doesn't cause any issues with your current employer, knowing that you potentially want other opportunities?
So I think, and this is a pretty old screenshot, so forgive me for not having a recent one, but I think when you do make this switch, it will say something to the effect of, do you want to let your network know? Or like when you post updates, LinkedIn always kind of gives you that little warning. I'm pretty sure a similar warning comes up when you make this switch. But let's also be honest, we are all professionals here. We've all gone from job to job. Who's done it? Your boss has done it. Your boss's boss has done it. If your company is a great company and they're taking care of you, they wouldn't have anything to worry about, right? So if they have faith in you and the work that you do and they're treating you well, all should be well. If they're not, what are you to do? Business is business. We have career goals and things we want to achieve. And we can't let, my HR is going to look at me funny because I'm looking for opportunities. No, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I have this degree for. That's what I'm, that's what I'm moving along in my career for. So do not let, fear of anyone judging you or thinking of you any different stop you from doing what you need to do for your career.
Thanks, that's really helpful.
Yeah, of course. And so we're coming up on the end of the presentation, and typically when I give webinars or in-person presentations, I always take a minute to talk about imposter syndrome, because I don't think, outside of our friendship circles, we talk about it with our homegirls and our homeboys, but I don't think on a professional level we talk about this enough. So I included this little slide where it's like, here you are at your job, you're doing your work, and everyone's like, oh, you're so great at this, and you're so good at that, and you're such a good hire, you're a great person to add to the team. And then the minute someone's like, hey, can you revise this blog that you wrote? The ending is not fitting, just revise the ending, that's all. And you're like, oh God, I suck, they're gonna get rid of me, they don't want me here, they think I'm terrible, I'm not doing a good job. And like that one negative comment just derails us from all the positive work that we've done. And we really have to stop that train of thinking, myself included. This is not an overnight change, but I just think it's so important in professional settings to say we are going to make mistakes. We are not going to be perfect. No one is expecting us to be perfect. We're not going to get it right every time. We're going to continue to learn and grow. That's what our jobs are for. If we were perfect, we wouldn't have had to apply, and we wouldn't anything. Anywho, all of that being said, we have to be able to look at ourselves and say, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying my hardest. I'm trying to set myself up and my future up for success. And if I can do my job to the best of my ability every day, that's all that matters. And if someone has one negative comment, that's okay. If someone wants me to change something, that's okay. I'm here to learn. But if overwhelmingly folks are happy with my work and I'm happy with my work, that's what truly matters. So I would be remiss to not include a comment on imposter syndrome, because we do spend a lot of times beating ourselves up when really we're doing a damn good job. So just a minute on imposter syndrome.
And Kristen, sometimes when you're developing your own resume or cover letter, you have a tendency to not see what you've accomplished because you're so deep into the weeds of what you do every day that it's hard for you to take a step back and see that you've really done a great job in your role. What type of tips would you give some of these candidates and graduates as well on how they can really create a robust resume without, if they don't have the access to a professional resume writer?
Sure. Some things you can do, and these things cost nothing, do a career audit. If you've been at your job for a year, and even if your job has a formal, annual review process or not, what have you accomplished in the past year? Literally go through past emails. If you have emails from your boss saying, good job, good work on this. What was that good work about? You did a great thing and you were acknowledged for it. That's a win. keep a win book. If you know that you did something great that day, at the end of the day, jot that down so that when it's time to update your resume, which you should be doing on a quarterly or so basis, but that when it's time to update that resume, you can go back to that win book, or you can go back to that audit that you did of yourself over the year. Another thing that I do too, or that I encourage my clients to do, if you don't feel comfortable, having the conversation with your boss of, am I doing a good job? Am I meeting goals? Am I exceeding goals? Talk to your coworkers, especially if you have a friendly rapport with them. They know that you're great. You know that they're great. If someone were to ask you, hey, what is John good at? What does John do? You could riddle off, oh, John keeps this ship running. John keeps, if we didn't have John, someone's going to say that exact same thing about you. So ask your coworkers. If you're ever feeling, insecure, or you don't think you did a good job on something, they're going to beef you up the way you would beef them up. Same for your friends. Your friends can see certain traits in you and certain soft skills in you that you may not see in yourself. If you're thinking of, what soft skills can I include on my resume? What would I say about myself? Ask your friends. Your friends might tell you, oh, you're super organized. You're the mom of the group. Or, oh, your communication skills are great. Every time there's a problem, you're a mediator. People know you better than you know yourself, or they see you in a light better than you see yourself. So reach out to your network, your friends, your coworkers, whomever, in addition to your own self-audits and your own win book. Those are great ways to find out, am I doing a good job? Is this a potentially career path for me? Do I have the skills necessary? Have I done the work necessary?
Thank you.
Of course. And I think that I might be coming up on my last slide. I am. It is my thank you slide. So I have on this slide, obviously my email address if anyone wanted to contact me, on my Instagram page where I post tips and things pretty regularly if you wanted to follow that. But in addition to that, I did want to offer, because I'm very appreciative of this opportunity, a webinar special. If there's any attendees or folks who may watch this recording later who do want to talk about getting a resume revamp done, or are looking for a cover letter, maybe you don't want the template, maybe you just say, you know what, Kristen, do it for me, please. That's what I do. We'll sit, we'll have a call, we'll talk about it, you'll tell me about your professional background, I'll ask you questions, and I can kind of put together a package for you, whether it's your resume, cover letter, any other professional materials you need. But as a thank you for you guys having me tonight, I wanted to offer that to everyone.
Thanks, Kristen. I think we have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Yes. So Tanya says, how do you handle job titles if you work in a small office that doesn't necessarily give titles? Should you create your own based on your duties, or should you look toward the roles you are targeting?
Okay, good question. So yes, there are companies that are kind of like pretty small or pretty intimate, and you wear many hats or things like that. If you got an offer letter and there is a job title in the offer letter and that matches, like you're comfortable with that job title, I would include that. But again, like I said, you might wear many hats. Put in the job title of the work that you do. Now, don't go ahead and be like, well, I'm the VP of Office Management, like keep it relative and keep it cute, but put in the job title of what you do. If you were hired as, so-and-so's administrative assistant, but really you're the person that processes the invoices for the company, you make sure that everyone, has printer paper, you order the materials for the office, you might not just be an admin, you might be the office manager. So you can put that, or you can slash it. But I would definitely put, one, the job title they gave you, if that still applies, and two, slash it and include the work or the job title of the work that you do.
Thank you. Any more
questions?
Yeah.
We were here, Alicia, always.
Right. So any other questions, please feel free to enter in the chat. Diona's keeping track of that. Another question for you, Kristen. When you start a new role, I know that you mentioned that you should update your resume quarterly, but as soon as you get that role, should you just start beginning to update it, or like once that quarter ends, then start updating your resume?
Give yourself time to learn the new role, to go through training and onboarding and things like that. Make sure that you're comfortable in the role before you go ahead and add things. I'm responsible for this and this and this and this. And then, someone may ask you, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, it's only my second week. I'm still learning what I do. So give yourself time to learn and grow in your new role. And I think quarterly, again, 3 to 4 months gives you opportunity to get a couple of wins under your belt and things you can potentially brag about on your resume. So when you get a new job, you don't have to go ahead and update your resume tomorrow or even update necessarily your LinkedIn tomorrow, but just give yourself a couple of weeks to get some wins and some accomplishments, and then you can update your materials.
Thank you.
Okay, so Curtis has another question. He says, for LinkedIn, what do you recommend are good headlines folks can put under their name to attract prospective recruiters?
So that's a very good question. I think that question is kind of specific to the work that you do. So potentially, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say I'm going to use marketing. Let's say you work in marketing, for example, and you don't just want to say I'm a marketing manager. You can say marketing manager, email marketing expert, SEO pro. You can kind of include the things you're good at and kind of stylize them, so it's not just, oh, I'm a marketing manager. No, I'm a marketing manager, but I'm an SEO pro, I'm an email marketing whiz, I'm a whomever. And again, because those keywords are going to be in your resume, recruiters can see that. I hope I'm answering Curtis's question well. I'm sorry, I don't know what Curtis does, so I'm trying to think just outside of the box off the top of my head if I was in a certain role, what I would put.
I think that was a good answer.
He said it helped.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, any other questions? Please enter them in the chat box. I think I have another question for you, Kristen, before we wrap up. So, why did the question just fly out of my head? So when it comes to resume questions, resume specific. So that's what it was. So when it comes to your resume and you're in different industries, does the format matter? Like if you are a finance major, should your education be at the top or at the bottom, or, versus media, should like certain elements that you want to highlight be, rearranged in particular?
I think overall, for the most part, for most people, your resume is going to follow a similar order. You're going to have your summary and your objective, your education or your qualifications, any skills that you have, and then you'll jump into jobs. But for some folks, let's say you wanted to include volunteer experience on your resume. If you've been working for a while and you have professional experience, you might want to include that at the bottom. Or, if you got your degree a relatively long time ago, let's say 10, 15 plus years ago, that can maybe go at the bottom so that some of your professional work and accomplishments can shine through higher at the top. Now that's in terms of ordering. In terms of format and style-wise, if you're a graphic designer, let me see some of that graphic design. Like, make your resume it should be visually appealing. That's what you do. That's your professional skill set. If you're a finance manager, I may not want to see icons and, shapes and colors. And no, it's your job to be, it's everyone's job to be responsible and professional. But obviously, certain careers, if you're a lawyer, finance professional, whomever, you should be more buttoned up. And your resume should reflect that. So if you have a career where creativity, or you're going into an industry where creativity is appreciated, be creative in your materials. If you're going into a career where professionalism and streamlined materials are more the norm, then do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Diona, any more questions in the chat?
Yeah, there's one more. Should you include your references when you submit your resume, or should you wait until they ask for them?
I would wait until they ask. And I think legally, folks can't just pick up the phone and call your references until they get permission from you. Also, that's just creepy, and it's also a waste of time if they don't know if they want to hire you or if they've never spoken to you. So aside from all of those things, I would actually hold on to my references until an ask or until they're requested.
Okay, and how do you tailor your resume experience if you've worked for a company at the same time that you were self-employed? Is it in chronological order, or skills-based, or a combination of the two?
Sure, that's a good question. So I think that's a matter of personal preference for some folks. Some folks prefer a skills-based resume. Some folks prefer chronological order resume. But no matter what, you can totally include, there can be overlap. You know, the same way you go to school and work at the same time, those years are going to match up. So if you have your own business and you're also working, those dates will match up, and that's fine. That's more experience under your belt. So I wouldn't exclude it or leave it off or try to play with the date so it makes it seem, absolutely not. That's your experience. It's all relevant, especially if it's relevant to the role you're applying for. Include them both.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? We still have about 2 minutes.
All right, well, I want to be respectful of your time, Kristen. Thank you so much for this great presentation. This was excellent, excellent, excellent. Also, Diona's putting in the chat box a resume checklist that you guys can download from the Mod Mentor website that Kristen has been so generous to give to us. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Of course.
On behalf of Diona Phoenix and I am Alicia Suggs, Director of University Relations and Alumni Groups of the New York Black MBA. Thank you for joining the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association's weekly digital series, Your MBA, Your Future. And please, we have upcoming webinars coming up. Please look at our Instagram as well, NYBLACKMBA, and on LinkedIn, our Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association. So thank you everyone this evening and have a great night.